Hey everybody, welcome to the Slick Tree Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Langford. The point of this show is to help improve ourselves as dogmen and to raise the quality of the dogs on the end of our lead. So let's settle in, turn the volume up, and let's see if we can't learn a trick or two together from our guests.
So we were in the Delta. We used to hunt a lot up there, especially when he was younger. A good friend of mine got me up there a good bit, Ronnie Thompson, and stayed with him a good bit, hunted. Another guy I worked with had a pretty nice little dog back then, and we went up one morning. I don't know if y'all hunt the Delta much. The Delta fox squirrels up there, they're pretty finicky in January and February. Big cold snap will shut them down. They'll hole up bad. Well, anyway, we took a group of guys from work and my buddy Cookie's dog and Digger. And that morning, I think we hunted a couple, 3 hours. And I don't know, we didn't scratch out much. I think we shot him 5 squirrels that morning and maybe 1 or 2 to the other little dog. And so we left, went to the store up the road there, got a burger and stuff. It had been being in the mid-20s every morning, and man, cloudy, and all of a sudden the sun popped out while we were sitting there eating lunch, shooting a bull. And it's 12:30. Started warming up pretty good, and I told Cookie, I said, we need to go. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I said, they fixing to be moving. And we went back to this little hole we hunted there a good bit, and it got up to probably 50, 52 degrees. And man, that was a hunt of all hunts. I think we ended up shooting 26 or 27 out that evening. The Digger, different guys. We had a pretty good sized group from work, and we had a stellar hunt that day. Oh, that was probably the best evening hunt. Hunted probably 4 hours, and I don't know, he probably made 35 trees, and like I said, we shot 27 out to him that evening. It was quite an experience, to say the least. I haven't seen it done like that before and since.
Huh.
It's a great hunt.
Sounds like it. Yeah, I've never been lucky enough to get down to, I haven't made it down to hunt the Delta yet. I'd like to kill some of them big black fox squirrels, though. I see pictures of them all the time, but...
Well, yeah, we've got them down this part of the world pretty good here in the Delta, and we have a pretty good crop of black squirrels every year.
Well, everybody, you are listening to the Slick Tree Podcast, and today we've got another good old dog series, and we've got Stephen Brabham, and we're talking about Gravedigger. How you doing today, Stephen?
Doing pretty good, buddy. It's just like I said, it's plenty hot down here in Southwest Mississippi, and we're kind of trying to survive another summer.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it. How'd you end up with Digger? What was the story on how you acquired him?
Well, so I hunted hounds predominantly when I moved here in 01, where I'm at now. Coon hunted mostly, and I guess around 2010, around this area, they started cutting up the woods pretty good. So I kind of phased out, started looking for a squirrel dog, something I can hunt in smaller blocks. And of course, I'm getting a little older too, so I was kind of ready to just slow down a little bit. And I'd been pretty wide open, pretty hard there for a while, like coon hunting. So I started going through a few dogs, and I bought a started dog from Carl Craig. Excuse me. Carl Craig in Albany area, Louisiana, South Louisiana. And she was started. And as long as it was just me, she was okay. But anybody strange, she was real peculiar, kind of picky about who she was around, and me hunting with other people, just trying to mainly pleasure hunt, and I just knew she wasn't gonna work, and I called Carl, which at that time Carl had his two boys were young, and they fooled with those dogs, and I called him up and told him, I said, look, this dog ain't gonna work, and not for me. I'll give him back, to your boys. And I don't think I even knew COVID when I pulled up down there to take her back. He had a litter of pups there, and I knew they were good-looking pups, and I knew that what the mother was she was Dixie, which is a full sister, younger litter to Dixie Creek Jagger, which Jagger was a pretty good squirrel dog, really good coon dog. Brad Goodman and I were hunting a good bit back in that day, and I'd hunted with Jagger and liked him, and he told me the sire to the pups was Worm's Gold Trigger, and I'd hunted with Trigger, and I really liked Trigger. Trigger was probably, a lot of people not going to like this, but to me, Trigger was probably more of my style of dog, and the fact that he was more like a hound to me. He had a lot of motor, a lot of heart. He was really good tree dog. He would throw locates, on the tree, and he just, from my opinion, he was more the type of dog that I wanted in a cur dog. So I'm looking at the pups, and he's like, man, just get you one of them pups. And if I remember correctly, it was a pretty good sized litter. It was 8 or 9 pups for sure. And he put them all on the ground, and there was some big pretty pups in there. And then there was this little old naughty dude. I always called him just a knothead, he was the runt. And them pups were playing, jumping, and pulling on my pants. And he's kind of off over there running around chasing a butterfly or a moth or something in the grass. And I just got to watching him, and he didn't really pay them other pups no mind. He was just kind of exploring out on his own. And I told Carl, I said, well, I'll take one of them. I said, but I want that one over there. He said, oh, man, I figured I'd have to cull that thing. And I walked over there and picked him up and brought him home, and the rest is kind of history. He's been really good to me. And I'm very fortunate to still have him, and hope I've got him a few more years, but he's been good to me.
Yeah. How how did he start as a pup?
He started, so I come home one day. I used to have a kennel behind my house right here, about 50 yards from the house or so. And I come home one day, and I was hunting something else. Because he didn't have a great birthday. He was a July pup. So that first fall, he really wasn't old enough to be doing much, right? I mean, he's 5, 6 months old. I've never been one of those that's crazy about, everybody, and that's fine, just different strokes for different folks. But a 6-month-old pup that's treeing don't really mean nothing to me, because you don't know what it's going to be in another year.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen them blow up. I've seen them quit. That don't really prove me nothing. But anyway, I come home, and he was probably 5.5, 6 months old. And my wife's like, you got to do something with that pup. And I was, what are you talking about? She said, he has been raising Cain at something out there all day. And there was a hickory tree, which my house and where my place lays here backs up as 160 acres here that I can hunt. And there's a creek runs across the back, and it joins the West Fork of the Amite River on my west side property line. So I don't have any neighbors per se. So I go out there and open the kennel. I'd always, when I'd get home from work, I'd go open the kennel and let him run around. And I opened that kennel. He went straight 30, 40 yards as an arrow to that hickory tree and just started treeing his head off. And I was like, all right. Well, I'm guessing that he sat there and watched a squirrel go up and down that tree that day. You know, I didn't see the squirrel, but undoubtedly he'd been watching it, and it had him crunk up. I mean, he was bug-eyed. So not long after that, you know, I started taking him out a little bit, and he would run in there and get a squirrel treed, and I'd break and run. And sometimes I could get there and catch him treed, and sometimes he'd be gone before I can get there and treat again. That rocked on there, you know, a couple months. I'd say he started locking down pretty good, staying pretty solid at 9, 10 months old, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when did he start treeing? 5.5, 6 months old.
How long did you wait before you started hunting him at night?
Well, actually, that's, you know, I got him to squirrel hunt, and I done well with him. I guess this kind of be a good time to talk about that. You know, when he was younger, that first winter, he, like I said, he was just 6, 7 months old, and really by the time the season went out, he was, you know, he was just really getting going. So I hunted him that spring, you know, just around here a little bit here and there, and kept him going. Well, the next fall rolled around, he was, you know, of course, he would have been, you know, 16, 17 months old, really his first season, and with a July birthday. So we started hunting him a little bit and shooting some squirrels to him, and he would tree a daytime coon or two just on his own when he was younger. And in the Delta especially, I mean, there's a lot of coons up there. Back then, that was a year or two before the bad flood, which we had the bad flood up there. I don't remember how many hundreds of thousands of acres went completely underwater for the whole summer. We had a big die-off up there. And the hunting's really not what it used to be compared to those days. But he would tree a few daytime. You know, early in the morning, you go up there and cut him loose. He'd tree you a coon. You know, if he come across it, he'd tree it. But I didn't really fool with it that much at night. That first season, just mostly squirrel hunting. And then I started taking him to a few hunts. And the first thing I wanted to do with him, I took him to the UMCA hunts. I had Brad Goodman. We were hunting a lot. He was really involved, and I met some guys that hunted in there in that bunch up there around Terry Snyder and all them, and I like Terry, and he's been a good friend to me, and you know, met Reed Franks, and you know, just Daniel Ballard and all them guys. So I just started going to a few of those, you know, just wasn't really setting out to competition hunt him a lot. And the first time or two I went, he was, like I said, he was real young. They had a spring hunt, so he would have been just over I don't know, I guess year and a half or so. And he looked good. He didn't win, but he looked good. Found out they had coon hunt, so I said, well, I'll go home and I can get points in that too, and I'll start hunting him a little bit. So I started hunting him just a little at night, and he done good there. And of course that brought us into the 2017-2018 season, and I told Brad, I said, I'm gonna try and make a run at that dog of the year. So we did that year. That 2017-18 year, he won the UMCA Dog of the Year, won the Mississippi State Hunt there. He won, trying to think, that year, he won the NSD State Hunt, Squirrel Hunt. He won the Reserve State Champion in the USDC Hunt here in Meadville. Made a night champion in UMCA that year. He did quite a bit that year. That was his first real, competition season. I guess you'd say that his long year old to 2 year, into his second year. But after that, I really didn't coon on him very much. I kept NSD hunting him, finished him out in UMCA, and I started concentrating on hunting NSD hunts, and so I kept him squirrel hunting more, and hunting him, a couple of years there in the NSD, and won the Mississippi Pro Hunt. It was in 2018, I think, or 2018 or 2019. I think it was late 2018, like in November, and I won it. That was a great win. That was a fun weekend, hunting with some nice dogs, and had 2 really good early rounds. That Saturday morning and evening, and we had some bad weather roll in that Saturday night, and we were hunting the final on that Sunday morning, and man, it was raining, wind blowing 30 miles an hour, just terrible. And I didn't really look to win. I didn't look to tree a squirrel the way they do up there. It was in the Delta, and like I said, those squirrels up there are notorious for hitting holes bad when the big fronts come through. But we fooled around and pulled it off. So I was very thankful and blessed. I had my wife with me. She walked on 2 casts, and it was a good weekend. No dog's been good to me. I can't complain.
Yeah. What how would you describe his hunt style?
In his prime, like I said, he's still here. He'll be 9 next month. But in his prime, I've hunted him with a lot of people. I've hunted with some really good people, met some great people, and hunted with a lot of really nice dogs. But in his prime, a lot of people can tell you he's really quick. He when you put him, he's moving. He's going to get in there quick. He'll as he comes to him, but a lot of times, especially when he got in that prime time, that 2 to 3 to 4 year old age, he would get in there. He'd kind of get in there away from them dogs before he started, grabbing trees and treeing squirrels. That was always his strong suit, Cold. There's certain people that always, told me that their highest quality in him was how fast he got in there on that first cut. That first cut, you were just about not going to get in there and get treed ahead of him, and he'd have a squirrel. I mean, he was going to have that squirrel on that first drop, as 8, 9 times out of 10. You know, he was notorious for it. That was his highest quality, and as far as his hunt goes, to me was, you know, under 2 minutes, he was going to be anywhere from 75 to 250 or so in tree, but he was going to have a squirrel. He was going to get on that card with plus points pretty quick. And at nighttime, he hunted. You know, he would hunt out. I don't know if I wouldn't. You know, here at the house, he hunt a little different. He knows everything around here, but you know, up in the Delta and stuff, he hunt big loops, 800-900 yards at night. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was gonna come up tree somewhere on coon.
How would you describe his nose?
Well, at first, when he was younger, I thought he was kind of an ambush dog. Oh, but I think he kind of is so accurate. He's got such a good nose. He makes it look kind of silly sometimes. So there's Cody Pritchard can tell you. Cody tickles me. He likes him. He's been up to the Delta a few times with me, and you can road hunt Digger on squirrels. We got a lot of ATV trails up there, and you can put him ahead of a bike, and he'll fly ahead of that bike down them trails, and you can watch him. I mean, he'll throw his head up and go. He might go 40 yards, and he might go 140 yards, but he'll go straight to a tree and just slam dunk a squirrel. You can shoot them till you're tired of shooting them. But I don't know. I've never had him really go to missing or where I felt like he was missing bad. I mean, he was just always a real accurate dog. Well, you're going to tree some dens, but, you know, a lot of times these dogs people think are treeing dens are not treeing dens. They're treeing old scent where squirrels were and they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
He just always had a knack for treeing squirrels. You know, he's real accurate.
What was his mouth like?
He had a pretty good mouth. It's choked down a little bit, you know, with age, but he always had a good mouth. I mean, he's never been out of here. And I don't know, several years ago, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years ago, right there, kind of toward the end when I was getting ready to take him out of the hunt. So I drew Shane Mason on a midday round up in Morton, Mississippi, up there at Chris Knight's. He had an NSD hunt, and he was hunting the false prophet hound that him and Wade and them have. And the prophet was getting treed, and he's getting treed quick, and was treeing, I felt like, good, legit dens. And, we had big oaks with nests and holes. But he was getting treed pretty quick, and I was watching the Garmin, which Digger had made a pretty big round, and I saw when he came back through, he kind of looked at me, and I, if he didn't say nothing, call him in or whatever, and he could see you, and you took a step and started walking, well, he was supposed to kick out of there. And I seen him when he busted back to the east in there. Oh, the little dog, the false prophet dog had treed, a couple 100 yards right there, and we walked up to him, and Dexter Alexander was judging. I told him, I said, when we pull this dog off that tree to walk, I want to listen. Because, I mean, it done kicked on in there. I can't remember how far it was. It was 800 or 900 yards at least. And when he pulled that dog off that tree to walk his minute, I treated him. And we walked that whole way in there, and he had a squirrel up a Tupelo gum, the only tree he made. One to cast. But he had a mouth you could hear. You know, it was going to carry good enough that you could hear. All of his pups have better mouths than what little bit I bred him. The pups have had an exceptional mouth. So Miles Miller's got a buddy of Jason Curley. He's got a female out of him and a tree knocking Mike female that's extraordinarily loud, hard tree dog. She's 130 bark a minute tree dog. But he's got a good mouth. You know, he had a really good mouth, but it's not what it once was.
When he was in his prime, if you pulled him out of the dog box and had him standing on the tailgate getting ready to hunt, tell us what you'd be looking at there. Just his conformation, if you get dews, ears, head, build, coat color, all that fun stuff.
He was black brindle. He's black brindle, good looking little dog. Kind of I don't know. I always called him kind of a wedge headed dog. He's got a really pretty head. You know, good and square. Doesn't have a chopped off little short squared off nose, but he's got a pretty good square muzzle. Maybe a touch long in the muzzle, but I like that anyway. So I think longer muzzle dogs tend to get a little less hot. So I kind of don't frown on that. He's got a good ear set. They set pretty high on his head, but they got a good fold. You know, he's got a decent ear, and probably in his prime top shape, probably 38 to 40 pound dog in good hunting shape. And he's as tight haired as a fresh paint job. I mean, he's real tight haired. He doesn't have a rough coat at all. He's slick haired, no dew claws. He's a pretty good looking little dog. Little bit cur doggy in the back end, you know, but pretty decently straight legs, good feet.
How's he
pretty good looking dog.
How's he handle heat?
What's that, buddy?
How's he handle the heat down there?
Well, you know, he did okay there for a while. And that's kind of the reason why I kind of backed off of him when he turned about 5 or 6. So I had him out of heat stroke when he was 5 years old. Probably almost lost him. And I was in a hunt in September down here. And that was probably the stupidest thing I ever done. I think it wasn't much doing, and I think he was on a bobcat, and he ran that bobcat hard, treed, and it jumped, and he got in a bunch of sawgrass, and he got real hot. First time I'd ever seen him come out. He come out staggering and lay down in a mud hole, and of course, you know, it cooked him pretty good. And up until then, he had done pretty well in this heat down here. But you know, I think you and I've talked before. I like cur dogs. I think, you know, obviously I've kept him this whole time. We've had curs and every other kind of dog under the world, but you know, people can say what they want, but that's why I have crossed him out on tree and walker females a couple of times. Is because I'm looking for that heat tolerant dog, and I think they're probably twice as much more heat tolerant than a tree and walker is definitely more heat tolerant down here than a cur dog.
And have you seen that show up in the pups that the heat tolerance comes through most of the time?
Yep, I have. The oldest pup out of Digger and a hound is only one pup, or now it's a dog, but there's only one dog. So out of that litter, I bred a semen female out of Ball Stylish Harry, Hickory Nut Harry. And Darren Pat in Vidalia, Louisiana, owns him, and he calls him Hank. He's a big, good-looking saddleback, black brindle trim dog, and I guess he's about 5 now, but he's a coon dog. They squirrel hunt him, or have squirrel hunted him a little bit, but I think Darren's son mostly now, last couple of years, has done nothing but coon hunt him, and he is a no-nonsense, get in the country, tree coon dog. He's real nice. And bred, like I said, that was the only pup that lived out of that one. And I bred a Insane Cane female a couple of years ago. And I wish I would have kept him. But the pup that I kept, I ended up selling. And he's up in Arkansas now. And they were heat tolerant. Tree coons and squirrels. There's a guy over in Columbia that's got a litter mate to that pup, female, that's a real squirrel dog. And they had no trouble with heat. And I bred a couple of curs that are, they're pretty heat tolerant. Robbie Blackwell's got a little dog called Boo that we've hunted a lot. She's no trouble with heat. You can hunt her both ways. The little cherry dog that I was telling you about that Jason Curley has, I had her here and sold her after I actually got her gave back to me. They couldn't get her started, and she was an older starting pup. She was probably 14, 15 months old before she started really sticking. And I hunted her that winter. Probably killed a couple hundred squirrels to her, and she just didn't have quite the range I wanted for a competition dog, so I sold her to Jason. And since then, they love her. They squirrel hunt her, they coon hunt her, she trees coons. She's a nice little dog, and she's pretty heat tolerant. And, of course, she's full cur, so, and Boo is too. So, like I said, he was so hard going. He was pretty heat tolerant, but he was so hard going, man. He make it rough on himself. I mean, I've had to 2 or 3 different times I pulled sticks out of him. I pulled a broke off stick out of his chest one day that was 3 inches long that went on just under the skin and ran down his rib cage. Thank the Lord didn't go, into his vital cavity.
Yeah.
He went hard. He was just really hard going young dog.
On the topic of him as a reproducer, I hear you've got a heck of a deal standing on him right now that you've put out there. You want to tell us about it?
Well, yeah, I've offered him a few times, to stud, and I think the dog, has a few qualities that people would like, and I've never bred him much. I don't think the dog's been bred to. He's been bred to 3 hounds, and I think maybe 4 or 5 cur dogs, and I mean some of them pups I don't even know where they're at. But I've had pretty good look. I'm thinking I've got around maybe I don't know. I'm gonna say close to 70. Maybe close to 70 pups on the ground out of him. And out of that, different litters, there's been, I know of at least 14 or 15 that, some of them never even been to a hunt, but they're nice dogs. So that's, if a man's honest with himself, you got something that's reproducing better than 10% to just average dogs, that's not bad. People say, "Oh, well, this dog would do this." Yeah, well, what are you measuring by? I mean, I've got a collie dog that'll tree a squirrel, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking about a real squirrel dog, not just something that is average. But he'll be 9 next month, and I would love to get a few dogs bred to him. And anybody listening, anybody that listens to this podcast, you bring me a clean test paper, and we'll get her bred, and you don't owe me a thing. So I'm not going to charge anything. I just want to get some pups on the ground. Maybe I'll have an opportunity one day to buy one back, or, you know, if you get a good litter, if it's something that I like the way it's bred, I may want a pup. I would have loved a couple years ago. Reed Franks had a dog called Crybaby, Tennessee Crybaby, and they bred Crybaby to Trigger, and I would have loved to have bred one of them half sisters to him. I think that would have been phenomenal. And I thought I almost had it done. Mr. Ricky Montgomery had Boots, and Boots was a really, really nice dog. That Trigger dog in general, you know, he's in UMCA. I think he's got like 4 different pups that were dog of the year. I mean, they were just he was you want to talk about underrated stud. I mean, that dog probably didn't have 150 pups on the ground his whole life. And I know of several really, you know, people's once in a lifetime type dogs. I mean, these were way above average dogs. But yeah, cur or hound, I've got him in his DNA registered, LMC, you know, Grand Squirrel Champion, all that good stuff. So somebody wants to try some, come on. I've got a young dog here. I'll turn loose and show you what he can throw.
Yeah. Is that the that training cur pup you've got?
Yes, my Shine pup. I raised 2 pups this past year, and I had this Shine pup, and I raised a cur pup out of a double Buffalo River Sound dog, and they both started treeing, and the yellow pup is real nice. He's actually a little bit older than this pup. I sold him to Chase Ballard, and he's wild as a March hare. Chase calls me all the time, and I think the other night he turned him loose, and I think he was a mile with the neighbor's house cat treed, and he took a pretty good tongue lashing, but he hates a cat. But I think the pup's going to make a nice dog. He's treeing real nice. He's treed these squirrels. I kept Shine just on his mouth. That litter, I think I've got 6 in this litter, and the whole litter has an extraordinarily good mouth. I've even got 2 or 3 now. Unfortunately, mine's not one. He'll throw kind of a little piece of a locate, but he's more or less just a big, loud, straight chop. Austin Brown has a pup that people's probably been seeing. If you follow Ronnie Thompson up in Pearl, excuse me, he's got a training pen up there, and Austin hadn't done nothing with his, and he bought a female from me, and she's been up there in Ronnie's pen for right at a month now. But man, you ought to hear that thing. He's posted some videos. She's got a big locate. She's got a hound mouth, and several of them pups come here with that kind of mouth. They got big locates, loud, hard going. This pup that I've got here is very, very hard going. You know, he just turned a year old this past week, and he's cast hunting. You know, I can cast him by himself, and he's hunting out. You know, he hunts good. If you're standing looking north, he hunts from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, going up through there like a pinball bouncing off the 10 and 2. You know, he's zigzagging, cutting the woods up, and he don't circle back too good, but he makes a pretty wide path going up through there. And I've had him go 700-800 yards before he starts circling. You know, circling back, but he's doing real nice this spring season. I shot a few squirrels out to him, and I shot a couple out to him in February when he was real young. But this spring season, he's really come on. I let Ronnie take him up there. I actually got Mr. Ronnie to hunt him like 2 weeks in that pen, in the starting pen, and kind of get him hiked up. And I brought him back down here and shot a few squirrels out to him. And yeah, I'm usually off on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I've been, you know, before it gets terrible hot, I've been taking him every weekend, you know, real early in the morning. And he's getting treed, you know, pretty regular now. He's pretty much going to end up getting treed. You're going to go get him somewhere, you know. So I like them, you know. Like I said, they may not be for everybody, but again, I come up coon hunting. So when I turn you loose, I don't really need you to come back look for me and make, you know, walk hunt dogs. It's really not my cup of tea. I would rather them. I'll come get you. You just go find one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
that don't surprise me too much coming from
hounds. They're a little
hounds.
harder going style of dog.
Yeah. What you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what would you say his Digger's biggest strengths were?
Foot speed, hustle. His biggest strength is definitely he's very competitive. He's gonna be moving ahead real quick. And you know, back when I was competition hunting him a lot, he was just really accurate, man. I didn't get beat very many times on plus points. He was always he's gonna come up and have his squirrels. And you know, real terrible bad day, if it come down to plus points, circle points, you were probably gonna win, because he didn't make that many circle trees. I mean, I think the most circle points I've ever had on a card was like 300 or 400, maybe 300. You know, pretty typical scorecard for him was, you know, a couple hundred plus, maybe 100 or 2 circle. You know, down here we ain't got just a ton of squirrels, and when you're hunting hard going dog, you know, you kind of control the clock. And back then too, man, you got to think we had, you know, our normal crowd the year that I won the NSD Mississippi Dog of the Year was, you know, Demon was down here, Jam and Boss Man. What was the Cephalon Don Dog, the yellow Don Dog. We had, you know, I can't even name them all. The state hunt that year was big. We had 18, 20 dogs. Chris Knight's tank dog, Rocky, big Walker dog hound was at the state hunt that year. Hunting with him in a midday round. He was hard. He's hard to get by. You know, the tree dog. But, you know, we had some really, when you come to a hunt, you know, I tell everybody, hardest place in the world to win squirrel hunts is in Mississippi, in my opinion, Mississippi and Arkansas. I mean, I think the past couple of years, Gary and them over there, the LBK boys, they've kind of took the reins on that. As far as this area goes, you go over there, you better have a dog. And I've hunted with Gary and them a lot over the years. Oh, back when Gary had, I think her name was Grace, 2020 dog, but I think she ended up winning a world title or two, and she was a nice little dog. But back then, that's the kind of dogs, I was hunting with, and it was, you had to have squirrels. You didn't win many casts down here on Circle Points.
I forgot to.
So that was.
Go ahead.
So I'd say that was some of his strengths for sure. Was his hunt speed and accuracy.
What I forgot to ask earlier. What's Digger's handle like?
Pretty decent. As long as he's not real terrible deep, he will. If you got a collar with training capabilities, you can tone him out. Now, if you got a T5 on him, you can forget it. You're going to have to go get him off tree. He's not. He's not going to come. He's just not. He's not going to quit and come out. Digger's never been one of those. He's not a quick come out type dog. I can count on about 2 or 3 fingers when he's quit on me, and one time was he cut half his ear off. The other time he had a heat stroke. So, by the way, he does have 1 1/2 ear. He cut one of his ears off in a hunt they meet. We guess on a fence. Me and Miles Miller found him, and he had ripped the lower part, about the lower half of his, I think it's his right ear. But he still don't make him look bad. I told him it makes him look tough.
Yeah, it just makes him look tough.
Yeah.
Yep. What would you say his biggest weaknesses are as a dog?
To me, the heat. The heat. I think he heats up, especially after he got, like I said, in that little bit of bind that time. He just can't take this heat no more. He's not the same dog that he was, back then, and I think it's primarily because of the heat. That's why I've tried to breed to a few hounds, is like I said, to try to offset some of that. I think the longer muzzle, more heat tolerant tree and walkers is, for our climate and the way that I like to hunt. That's what I'm gonna primarily hunt. Now, I'd love to have a good cur out of him, but I want it to be something pretty heat tolerable.
Yeah.
That's his biggest weakness. And then if anything else, like I said, as far as weakness goes, if I had to pick on anything, I would say it would be maybe a little bit of a little more tree power, which he trees plenty hard enough. He probably trees, I don't know, 85, 90 barks a minute. But in the heat, like I said again, he doesn't tree as hard.
Well, you got any other good stories on him for us?
Well, I've got a few. You want a competition story or a pleasure hunt? Or...
Whatever you feel like telling.
Well, I'll tell you one that's pretty funny, and Gary Mitchell will probably get a kick out of it if Gary listens. We were at the Mississippi State hunt, UMCA Mississippi State hunt, and we get to the final cast, squirrel hunt. We get to the final, and it's me and Digger and Gary Mitchell and Grace and James Messner with a dog I think he called Taylor. And of course, James, back years ago, James hunted a lot of really nice dogs too. And she was nice. She was a really nice dog. Well, so we go out and we get dogs cut, and I kind of stubbed my toe. Digger run in there and treat a squirrel, and I could tell that the squirrel was timbering by the way he was barking. So I was going to let him settle. Well, the little Taylor dog run in there and backed him, and when she barked, James booked her. So I ended up getting a second tree on that squirrel, and I was pretty aggravated about it. And we rock along there. I think we tree another circle tree or two, and Grace gets a squirrel treed, and we get going along there, and Digger gets treed again across the creek, pretty good distance over there, and Grace is split, and we walk to Digger, and Gary goes to handle Grace, and we go there, we score a squirrel, and I walk back up, and Gary Mitchell says, he have a squirrel? I said, oh yeah. He said, I kind of figured that. And anyway, we go on, and it comes down right there to the end of the hunt. And James ended up getting the Taylor dog treed right there at the end of the hunt. And it was hard to say. I could have swore the dog was moving around. She was in a little thick spot. And really all she had to do was tree and have a circle, and I was going to put her tied with me. Well, he gets a snap on her. He gets a snap on her. Mm-hmm. And we score a tree that is where she's supposed to be treed. And it's circle. And so now we're in sudden death overtime. So we go into sudden death, and we get them lined up. Gary's, it's just me and James and the Taylor dog and Digger. And Gary's just going to, judge us. And we cast the dogs, and I'm pretty aggravated because I feel like I've done should have won this thing twice, But anyway, he turns around and sticks his, we unsnap the dogs. He turns around and sticks his hand out, and I stick my hand out, and he goes to tell me good luck, and Digger barks, and I grabbed his hand and said, Digger tree, good luck. All in the same sentence. It wasn't 10 seconds off the recut. He runs in there about 70 yards and slams a tree, and Taylor backed him, but it didn't matter. It was over then, right there. Mm-hmm. He won the state hunt. So that was a pretty memorable hunt. Like I said, just the way it happened. We turned loose and immediately turned around to shake each other's hand and tell him good luck. And I treat him on the first bark because I knew I had to. It's just the way it was. But mm-hmm. that was pretty fun. And I don't know. I've had several that pro hunt up there. That was a memorable one. I hunted with some nice dogs up there. Probably that weekend hunted in that final with Jim and Boss Man. And just, treat a squirrel, bad weather, walked up there and Rod Hardy was judging, and we looked and looked and looked, and I didn't ever think we'd ever see a squirrel there the way the weather was. I took a water bottle. The tree had a scar in it, a hollowed out place in it. I took a water bottle, an empty water bottle out of my vest and started rubbing up and down on that scar in the inside of that tree, and that squirrel run out of the top. I've tried that a million times since and never got a squirrel to come out like that. But it worked that day, and it worked, perfect. I wasn't even supposed to hunt. This will tell you how meant to be that was. I was supposed to be hunting. Oh, gosh, dog, I can't think of his name now. Tommy Howard on the outlaw dog. And I was going to hunt outlaw. Outlaw was a young dog then, but I was going to hunt the Outlaw dog. And Tommy, I had Digger up there. We all met up there. And the day before, or 2 days before, we were up there pleasure hunting, and Outlaw left a tree or two. And of course, Digger was doing well. And Tommy come to me and said, "Look, we ain't hunting Outlaw tomorrow." I said, "Well, okay, whatever. It's your entry. Oh, that's fine. I get it. If you don't want to turn him loose, I get it." He said, "No, you just hunt Digger." I said, "No, Mr. Tommy, I ain't gonna do that. That's your entry, and you pay for that entry, and I'm not gonna do that." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do. You hunt, and if whatever you win, we'll split 60-40." And he did, and he hung around. And I won that Sunday morning. I called him. And I said, "Hey, I got some money over here for you." And he was staying with David Luckett, and came by and got him a little money, and we got a little money, and we come on home. That was a crazy. Just that whole weekend was crazy. Ronnie Polachek had me beat in the midday or the second round that Saturday evening. He had me beat. I found a squirrel for him to win it. He shook a black squirrel out of a tree, and on the way to her tree, Digger come down the side of a little drain and just sailed tree right over there. And I walked over and tied him on the way to her. I walked over and tied him, and we walked to that tree, and my wife walked on the cast, and we found Penny squirrel, and that put her ahead. And it was getting down to 10 or 12 minutes left in the hunt. And here we are, done walked past him tree, handled him, walked off, went and scored that tree, probably 150 yards across there. Shaking, turn around, walk back. And my wife asked me, she said, what's the score? And I said, "Well, we got to have a squirrel right here or we're beat. We're done. We're out." And we walked back over there, and I reached and grabbed a vine and rattle it up a big cottonwood, and 2 big red squirrels, timbering out. And that's what won it for me, and just, hunts like that. I've had some good ones, so I had some good pleasure hunts with him, some good coon hunts, hunted with hounds and looked really good. And a good friend of mine in Woodville, Mississippi, Mr. Terry Thorpe, probably the best round I've ever seen Digger have. And this is the honest truth. I got the picture. Mr. Terry can tell you the story. We went to a really good spot, some place that he deer hunts, but we cut loose there about 4 o'clock. And I think in an hour and 24 minutes, we made 16 trees. He shot 16 squirrels. Him and I shot. He was 16 for 16. We shot our 2-man limit in just under an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, when he was on, man, when he was younger, was he perfect? I don't think there's any perfect dog. Was he hard to beat? Yeah, he was hard to beat, and we've killed. God, there's no telling how many squirrels that dog's had killed to him. There's really no way of knowing. It's an unbelievable number. It's crazy. He was just deadly accurate, and people like dogs that get treed, and I do too. I like a dog that gets treed. That's part of the game. You got to get treed to get on the card. But if I walk, I'm a little different. Some people I'm not that guy that walks up to every tree and pets the dog the first thing they do. I don't get nothing out of that. I may be wrong for that. People may judge me wrong for that, but I'm not walking up there and petting that dog every time. I'm not. I want to see a squirrel. If you tree, I want to see a squirrel. I get it. You're going to tree some dens. There's squirrels. But a lot of these dogs, people think are pretty accurate, and they're 30, 40, 50% accurate. That ain't my cup of tea. I'm sorry. You may have a really nice, clean tree dog, but if you're not seeing but half his squirrels, he's not going to live here with me. I've had one dog, in 24 years of living here. There's been one dog that stayed here from 8 weeks old that'll die here, and that's him. And that's the God's honest truth. I haven't buried a dog here, a hunting dog here, in over 20 years. They just don't, I mean, they get to a certain point. I'll sell them, move them on, start another one. But he's been a little different. He's been a little extra for me, and I wouldn't, even to this day, I wouldn't. There's no money I would take for him. He's been that good to me.
Yeah, good ones are hard to find, aren't they?
Oh yeah, trust me, I know. I've fooled around, and I've let him get a little long in the tooth, and haven't much down here. There's a lot of good dogs to breed to. Now, I'm not knocking anybody's dog at all. There's a lot of great dogs out there, a lot. But we don't have a lot in my area. We don't have a lot of squirrel dog people. So, why would somebody drive here and breed to him when they could drive to, Gary's and breed to Spike? Or when Chris had Tank, they could breed to Tank, which I hunted with Tank a lot. Tank was fun to hunt. Well, I beat him, and he's beat me, but why would you, in this area, there's just not a lot of opportunity to breed, and I fooled around and not got a lot done with him that I would love to have had done. And I had a few pups that I've tried to buy back, and Darren's dog, Hank, I would have loved to try to buy him back, and haven't been able to get that pulled off. But and the little dog that I call Pride, that's in Arkansas, I kicked myself in the tail for selling him. He made a really nice dog, sure did. And those were the two treeing curs. So, and then Robbie's bulldog, she'll die there. So I couldn't get her back for no amount of money in the world, which that's fine. He's not that far from me, and she's a really nice dog. She'll die with him,
Well, I think that pretty well does it for the amount of time we got today, Stephen. I want to thank you again for agreeing to come on here and tell us about yourself and Digger. And I know I've enjoyed listening to it. I'm sure everybody else will too.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's been fun to tell a few stories on the old man, and he's still here. Oh, I don't do much hunting no more. I coon hunt him a little bit, occasionally squirrel hunt him, but predominantly I'll coon hunt him in the winter. But he's still around. If anybody's got any, pretty good females, come in heat this fall or summer, fall. We'll get her done if you want. Like I said, no stud fee. I'd just like to get a few more pups on the ground out of him and get them to some people that'll hunt them. That's the biggest fault we got in the cur dog world, is the majority of the pups don't get in the hands they need to. And I'd love to see some get in some good hunters' hands and see what they do. And I've got a lot of confidence in them, and I've got a young dog here that I'll be hunting this fall, and I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it, man.
How can somebody get a hold of you if they're wanting to breed a digger?
I've got social media page, Facebook, and you can call me on my cell phone, 601-248-1914. Shoot me a text or give me a call, and I'll help you out any way I can. If you travel, I have a camp here by my house. It used to be a deer camp. I bought some more property that joins me, and I've got a little bunkhouse across the way right here, just out of my yard over there. You can stay the night over there free of charge if you travel, and we got it. It's not the Hilton, but it's clean and dry and got air conditioning and heat. So I've got a kennel built over there now, and you're welcome to come. Need to stay a night, you're welcome to do that.
All right. Well, everybody, take care and keep wearing out that boot leather.
I just want to give everyone that's listening a sincere thank you. Getting this podcast going has been a project. I really hope you're enjoying it, and if you don't mind, give the show a good rating and review wherever you're listening to it at, or share it on your social media to help get some traction. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback.